All right. Well, if we're going to be starting, I guess it's almost 7:30, or maybe it is 7:30. 7:29. I guess we'll wait another minute. Well, I'm Neil Poppendieck. I'm the president of the Audubon Miami Valley here in Oxford, Ohio. We welcome everybody who can come tonight, and hopefully a few more people will sign up as we go along. I just have a couple announcements before we meet our speaker tonight. We do have a field trip this Saturday. Um, the 18th of November. It's at 9 o'clock. It's at Salamander Run, which we've been to before. And it's at 4821 Lehigh Road. So that's at 9 o'clock. And all the information is on our website, audubonmv.org. We also have another field trip on Saturday, the 2nd of December. And that's at Brookville Lake with Dave Russell. That starts at 8 o'clock. We meet over on the South Old Dunlopsville Road, and we often see a lot of cranes over there and bald eagles and a lot of other birds. So that should be really nice. And then on the 16th of December is when our Christmas bird count is coming up. And then if you want to get on to that, just check on our website, and there's the contact information for Larry Gersbach, and he'll be able to set you up with an area to do our Christmas bird count. And then we meet at a central location on Miami University at the ERC, Environmental Research Center, out on Somerville Road for lunch. At 12 o'clock, we go through all our birds that we've seen in the morning, and then we kind of decide which ones we haven't seen and which areas haven't been covered. So we do that in the afternoon. So that's really all I do have another public meeting, which will be 4 weeks from today, and that will be in person at LCNB. And it's going to be at 7:30. And then it's going to be by Sarah Morris, who Audubon Miami Valley sent to Hog Island last year for education purposes. And so she'll be coming in and giving a presentation on her experiences at Hog Island. And I know she's a teacher, so she definitely took it back with her. So that's all the information that I need to go over tonight. So we'll send it over to Peggy, who's going to introduce our speaker.
Hi, good evening. Glad to be here. I'm glad that Ruth is here because I'm excited to hear an update. But John and I were first introduced to solar cooking in the early 1970s when we moved to Davis, California. So this is not a new technology. Our college classmates, Bob and Mary Beth Metcalf, lived nearby in Sacramento, and they were part of a local group that was making and using solar box cookers. Bob was a microbiologist by training, and he researched the food safety aspects of solar cooking, because one of the early questions was whether there was problems about food safety when you use something like that. When we visited them, we were served solar cooked meals, and that was our introduction to that. We were inspired to build one of our own. And then in 1987, the members of that group finally founded the nonprofit, which is now called Solar Cookers International. We've been on their email list ever since and keeping track of our friends, Bob and Mary Beth, as they run around. So tonight we have with us Ruth Holton Hodson, who is on the board of Solar Cookers International. She spent her 35-year career as a consumer and health policy advocate, serving in various positions in government, philanthropy, and nonprofits. From 2008 to 2019, she served as deputy to California controller and then treasurer. The highlights of being on the board: she was really active in helping with setting up some of the California's public employee retirement system. So she's been working with nonprofits things for a number of years. She also developed and co-led state employee wellness programs. She spent almost 10 years at the California Wellness Foundation as a special projects director and was then director of public safety and focusing on increasing access to healthcare in low-income communities and educating the philanthropic sector about the importance of public policy grant making. Prior to that, she served as executive director for California Common Cause. Common Cause is a pet project of a number of Audubon people, a local one, and then was a lobbyist for California Children's Lobby. She has a master's in educational administration from the University of Chicago. She's now retired and is vice president on the board. Also, she did briefly attend Miami University somewhere in the distant past. So when I've talked to her about speaking, she said, "Oh yeah, I know where Oxford is." So she works for a lot of volunteer nonprofit things, and she says she's also an artist. So maybe she'll tell us something about that, because there is an artist as part of your audience today. Libby is an artist, so she'll be interested in that. So I'm going to turn it over to Ruth, who's going to share her screen, and we'll hope all the technology gets going here.
Right. So first, well, thank you, Peggy, for inviting me. And I have to say, it's a real pleasure to be here, especially among a group who know when I say I went to Miami, I don't mean Miami, Florida. My dad is from London, Ohio, and he loved to tell people he grew up in London and went to school in Oxford. I'm sure that there are several other of your members that do the same. Let me move to sharing my screen.
And I'm going to try to get off of here if I can make it work, so you have more bandwidth.
Dokie.
I'm going to mute myself and start my video. Stop.
All right. So how is that?
So we don't actually see your screen yet here, Ruth, if you want to try that share option.
Let me, so I got to escape this, right? And, here we, no, that's not it. Share screen. Got it. All right. Now I can click on it. Share. All righty. Even though we practiced this beforehand.
Told you there would be a test.
Oh, it's tricky. Okay, I'm trying.
All right, we see it. It looks beautiful.
Great, and I'm actually trying to do it so you just get the, there we go. And we can start from the beginning. So in a time when the climate news is getting increasingly depressing, it frankly is particularly gratifying to share some good news. So delighted to be here, and sort of Peggy already alluded to how exciting and how powerful solar cooking can be. You know, solar cooking is, the purpose of solar cooking is really harnessing the free energy of the sun for one of man's and women's most basic tasks, cooking. It's an incredibly cost-effective, simple, sustainable, climate-friendly technology that isn't just about cooking a meal. It's about improving human health, particularly women's health, as they're the ones that are primarily the cookers in the family, the environment, climate, economic well-being for the world's most vulnerable populations. So today I'll give a brief primer on why solar cooking matters, how solar cookers work, their multiple benefits, Solar Cookers International's role as the leader of the solar cooking movement, and how you can get engaged. So let's begin with why solar cooking matters. According to the WHO, 2.4 billion, that's a B, or 1 in 3 people globally, mostly women, cook over open fires, just as people have been doing for millennia, burning wood, animal waste, and charcoal, thus breathing in smoke and soot for hours every day. In fact, smoke from cooking over an open fire poses higher health risks than malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS combined. The WHO estimates almost 3.2 million people die prematurely from household air pollution from cooking. And as you can see in this diagram, this picture, that's exactly what happens. And they're cooking inside with minimal ventilation. The combined effects of ambient air pollution and household air pollution are associated with 6.7 million premature deaths annually. The consequences for pregnant women are even worse. Children are also at very high risk from indoor smoke pollution. Studies have found that indoor air pollution from burning wood or biomass leads to reduced lung function, a variety of respiratory infections, impaired mental and motor development, behavior disorders, and childhood cancers, many leading to lifelong health consequences. Having an open biomass fire indoors is the equivalent of burning 400 cigarettes in an hour. And where do they get the wood? They get the wood from the forest nearby. The bundles of wood that you can see these women carrying can be greater than 60 pounds. Fetching wood for the fireplace also places women at high risk for sexual violence, as they have to go farther and farther into the forest to get the wood. Poisoning is another risk. Liquid fuels are put into reused soda bottles, so can be accidentally mistaken for a beverage. Getting burnt, not only for the women, but for children playing around the fire, is another risk. Then there's the time loss. Just think about the time that women are forced to spend most of the day focused on cooking. Think of how much more productive that time could be spent to improve the lives, their own lives, and the lives of their families. Now, the environmental consequences. We've just seen the picture of the women carrying those huge bundles on their heads. Deforestation. Estimates are that one family cooking with wood burns 1 ton, yes, that's a ton, of wood a year. Now extrapolate that to the 2.4 billion cooking mostly with firewood. More than half of the deforestation in sub-Saharan Africa is attributable to trees cut for firewood and charcoal. In Kenya, only 6% of the land is still forested. Deforestation in turn leads to massive erosion, as you can see in this picture, degrading both water and soil quality. And of course, the loss of forests, which serve as critical carbon sinks. Let me also add the consequences of using dung, the removal of which deprives the soil of nutrients, leading to poor harvests. Finally, the climate impacts. All the fuel that is used releases tremendous amounts of CO2. According to the WHO, cooking with polluting fuels is responsible for approximately 2% of human-created greenhouse emissions. More importantly, it accounts for half of all black carbon emissions, which is particularly damaging as its warming capacity can be up to 1,500 times greater than carbon dioxide. As you can see, so the good news, as you can see from this slide, the hottest part of the world is also the poorest part. And there is a simple solution. The simple solution is solar cooking. If we can harness the energy of the sun for cooking in these regions and make that the norm, the impact would be extraordinary. The sun is a free, sustainable energy source. Solar cooking improves the health of women and their families, protects the environment, and creates energy independence. It frees up scarce income used to pay for fuel and then can be used for other necessities. And it frees up time for women to pursue other activities to benefit their families and their communities. In fact, solar cooking addresses all 17 of the United Nations Sustainability Goals, which you can see here. The ones we focus most predominantly on are goals 5, gender equity, goal 7, affordable and clean energy, and goals 13, climate action. And here's just a couple of lists of why solar cooking, and I've been over quite a bit of this. And I will talk further about some of its other uses, like pasteurizing water. So what is a solar cooker? Simply put, they are devices that capture the free energy of the sun through the use of reflective surfaces to cook food and pasteurize water. Here are just a couple of examples from the very basic cardboard lined with aluminum foil, sort of the reflective panel. So, and you can make this at home practically. The solar box oven, which can be built to contain several pots. In both cases, the light from the sun creates a diffuse heat, making them good for slow cooking like stews, rice, and bean dishes. Sweet potatoes cooked this way, I can testify, are particularly delicious. You just pop them in the pot, no water needed, and 45 minutes to an hour later, you have a really creamy sweet potato. That was the first thing that I ever cooked in a solar cooker. The parabolic reflector there on the top right directs the sunlight onto the pan, making the surface much hotter. There's a rod across the center with sort of a little circle that holds the pot. And so that enables grilling and frying. The Fresnel lens functions very much like a magnifying glass, focusing the sunlight on a particular point, so it gets very hot. The lenses are made of glass or plastic. The solar array cooker, this is one that's from Nepal, has mirrored reflectors that are flat panels, so it doesn't require a complex curved shape of a parabolic and can still reach temperatures typical of parabolic cookers. The metal frameworks to hold the mirrors can be assembled by craftspeople with basic welding skills. So think of the parabolic, the lens, and the mirrored models as a stovetop versus a box-style cooker is kind of like an oven. Let me also note, because that it doesn't have to be hot outside. You only need the sun. So you can solar cook in the winter on a sunny day. We have a board member who lives in Minnesota and he solar cooks all year round. Critically important about all of these examples, and I can't emphasize this enough, is that they can be manufactured in local communities using local resources and local workers. There are many projects around the world training community members, especially women and girls, on how to build solar cookers. The key, there is no dependency on first world technology. So if the technology breaks, they don't have to wait for something to come from the West. They can just fix it right then and there. But most importantly, they can build it right then and there, creating new industries. So how do solar cookers work? As I've alluded to, this is the picture of mine. It's very simple. It's Mylar. And there's my pot, my black pot. Basically, as I said, they capture the sunlight through a variety of reflective surfaces and then directs it into a black surface where it's converted to heat. One of our members has actually made a solar cooker using the shiny insides of potato chip packets. Takes longer, but it still works. It just needs to be a shiny surface. To make sure the cooker is properly positioned, you simply stand with your back to the sun and your shadow should fall over the center of the cooker. You have actually, I'm sure, experienced what it's like to actually be the food in a solar cooker. You just sit in the car with black seats on a sunny day with the windows rolled up. And I know that you probably feel like you're cooking, and believe it or not, the food is cooking, cooks really well. So here's a sort of quick visual of what's actually happening. You have the sun hitting the reflective surface, which then hits the pot, which would be on that circular device. It's important to use a dark pot, a black pot, because black absorbs the heat. And you can also see then on top of that, you cover the pot so that retains the heat, in this case, covered with some glass bowls. So how long does it take to solar cook? Well, obviously it depends on what you're trying to cook. My sweet potato cooked about in 45 minutes. And it also depends on the type of solar cooker you use, whether it's a box cooker or a parabolic fryer. What if it's a cloudy day and you want to eat at night? So some solar cookers have heat retention and or backup power sources built into their design. The solar sun bucket is one of these. What we often do is have these solar retention baskets where you put the food into these baskets, which were just lined with cloth with a heavy top on top, and it retains the heat. I actually, to try it, wrapped my pot with several towels, and it actually stayed very warm for several hours. I was very pleasantly surprised. So food cooks at between 180 to 195 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's food. It's not hot enough to burn or dry out the food or damage any healthful nutrients. So that allows for many foods can cook for several hours without overcooking, kind of like a crock pot. Actually, very much like a crock pot. And you can use crock pot recipes for solar cooking, which allows the food to be placed in the cooker early in the day and left into mealtime without needing to be stirred or monitored. Most importantly, since there's no direct heat source at the bottom, the food doesn't burn. And the moderate cooking temperatures also help preserve nutrients, making food more nutritious. So how much do they cost? Well, it depends on how fancy a solar cooker you want. Some are practically free. Just make them from recycled materials and make sure it's just a shiny surface. And some can cost hundreds of dollars, depending what you want and what you can find on Amazon. The key is really, with any new technology, is training and follow-up. There are also institutional solar cookers. This is really exciting. In India, institutional solar cooking is gaining a lot of momentum. The world's largest solar steam cooking system is at this temple in India, where they serve up to 50,000 people per day. The dishes, as you can see up here, concentrate sunlight on the receivers, and those receivers move with the sun. And those receivers contain water, and then as it heats up, it generates steam that is piped down into the kitchen for cooking purposes. Here's a kitchen in Nepal where they're using steam to make momos or Nepalese dumplings. Other uses, as you can see, there are multiple uses like food processing, food drying, sterilizing medical equipment. One of our global advisors uses solar cookers to roast their coffee beans in Bolivia. But most importantly, solar cookers, as Peggy mentioned at the beginning, can be used for water pasteurization. As many of you, I'm sure, are aware, water is not clean in many parts of the world. And so instead of sort of some fancy mechanisms to clean the water or pills or bleach or whatever, you can use a solar cooker. And water pasteurizes at 65 degrees Celsius. And as I said, a simple solar cooker heats up to 82 or 121 degrees Celsius. So you can see these women are using what's called a WAPI. That's that little picture that you can see up at the top. Looks kind of funny, but it's actually just a simple test tube, partially filled with wax attached to a wire. The user simply hangs a wire on the side of the pot with the test tube in the water. And when the wax melts, that means the water's hot enough and is pasteurized. So very simple system. We estimate that there are now over 4 million solar cookers being used today. That means over 5.8 million tons of CO2 emissions are prevented in 1 year, the equivalent of taking more than 1.25 million cars off the road. Over 30 million tons of CO2 is prevented over the lifetime of these solar cookers, the equivalent of not burning over 34 billion pounds of coal or driving over 76 billion miles. While emissions-free and sustainable solar cooking is empowering families, countries are saving tremendous amounts of money through avoided health and environmental costs. We estimate that if everyone currently cooking with polluting fuels use solar cookers just a quarter of the time, it's estimated over $1 trillion could be saved annually around the world. So let me now move on to tell you a little bit about Solar Cookers International. We're really the hub of the solar cooking movement. We're a nonprofit with over 35 years of experience in the solar cooking sector. As Peggy said, we've been around a long time. Our mission is to improve human health, economic well-being, women's empowerment, and the environment by promoting climate-friendly solar cooking for vulnerable populations worldwide. We do this in 3 different ways, through advocacy, research, and capacity building. We used to, at the very beginning, really focus on distributing solar cookers to all sorts of countries around the world. But as a small organization in Sacramento, that really became unsustainable. And so instead, what we do is we really sort of focus on advocacy to try and get, and particularly advocacy in the United Nations. We are currently the only organization with consultative status to the United Nations that is solely dedicated to advocating for solar cookers. Our consultative status gives us the ability to participate in UN conferences and committees. So we are at COP every year, the annual UN Climate Summit, raising awareness and educating policymakers from around the world about the power of solar cooking to improve the lives of the most vulnerable populations in the world. We participate in organizing efforts with our partners at international forums, with international organizations and governments to support the adoption of solar cooking throughout the world's poorest regions. Here are some of the international forums that we participate in. And here we are demonstrating solar cooking at COP last year in Egypt. We didn't have to worry about the sun there, but the year before it was in Scotland. It was a lot trickier and we were holding our fingers. So a really important part of our advocacy has been focused on getting clean cooking and solar cooking included in countries' nationally determined contributions, which are submitted in accordance with the Paris Climate Accords. And so what a country does is if they then can move to mentioning solar cooking, we can, they will then provide, we hope, they will be providing the funding, et cetera, to get solar cooking into the poorest regions of their own country. Much more efficient than us sending solar cookers from Sacramento. As you can see, though, there's a lot of work to be done. Of the 195 nationally determined contributions submitted to the UN, 71, only 71 mentioned cooking or an interest in using non-polluting fuels for cooking. Of those, 41 specifically mentioned cooking or cook stoves, and only 2, Somalia and the Central African Republic, specifically include solar cooking as a sustainable approach. We actually started working with Somalia several years ago, and we're very excited when they put that into their plan. And then it's only just last year that we started working with the Central African Republic, and we're super excited that that is now in their plan. An important advocacy tool that we've created is our solar impact summaries for almost 100 countries where data was available. The solar cooking impact summaries show the number of solar cookers currently identified in each country, the percentage of the population in each country relying on polluting fuels to cook, i.e. dung, charcoal, and firewood, and the estimated savings for each country if the population used solar cookers just a quarter of the time. As you can see, the savings in health and environmental costs can reach into the billions of dollars annually. These statistics are invaluable for solar cooking advocates to use when seeking partnerships and support for solar cooking projects in their country. And we certainly distribute them at the UN and all of the international organizations where we work, just as sort of an education tool to say, look what can be done. There's a simple solution. So research. We have been leading the efforts in the solar cooker sector to develop international standards for household cookers. Our research specialists developed the performance evaluation process, or the PEP test, which measures the thermal performance in watts. Standardization, we believe, is key to innovation and creating a sustainable and profitable solar cooking industry. So, solar cookers very early on were sort of unreliable. People would build them, they would work for a while, they would sort of fall apart. Nobody knew kind of how long they would last or how efficient or effective they are. And through these PEP tests, we can now give kind of the household seal of approval for solar cooking efficiency. And so when people are buying solar cookers, they can see if it's had a PEP test, and if so, what are the wattages? And they'll know, and so the consumers will know sort of how efficient a particular cooker is. We have 3 PEP testing centers, 2 in the States, 1 in California, 1 in New York, and then 1 in Kenya. And then the third and sort of final element of our efforts is focused on building capacity. As I mentioned, we are the largest network of solar cooking organizations. We have hundreds of collaborators in over 135 countries. These are all our associate members. And organizations that solar cook can join us for a very small fee and become an associate member. And then that way they get information all the time about the developments in the solar cooking world. We promote collaboration, education, and sharing of best practices. We help build and strengthen relationships between solar project directors around the world. One of the most important tools that we provide the global solar cooking community and those interested in solar cooking is the Solar Cooking Wiki, which provides a wealth of knowledge with almost 1,800 pages of information about best practices, 142 country-specific solar cooking information and who to connect with in that particular country, how to build solar cookers, implementing a successful solar cooking project, news and events. It's just a terrific resource. We have a person who works part-time in scouring news and connecting with all our associates to keep this up to date as to what's happening, where, and solar cooking. As you can see, that very first article is about, that's just this month, is about the Sun Power Co-op, which is located in Morocco and is working with women, teaching them not only how to use a solar cooker, but also solar food processing. So this is the place to go if you want to learn more, and it can be really fascinating following what's happening all over the world. The information on the wiki automatically translates into over 35 languages. We also continue our involvement in a couple of key projects, which has provided many lessons learned that we can then share with the field. Since 2018, our largest project is at the Kakuma refugee camp, administered by the United Nations in northwestern Kenya, which houses approximately 200,000 refugees from around the region. Here you can see the cooking fuel situation at the Kakuma refugee camp. While refugees do receive free food rations, the local NGO in charge of supplying firewood is not able to meet the demand. Refugees need to fend for themselves, for instance, to pay money or barter some of their food rations for firewood or charcoal from local villagers at makeshift cooking fuel markets. Family of 7 spends a minimum of $23 a month on cooking fuel. That's a huge percentage of their monthly income. And there you can see, they can buy charcoal or liquid fuel or bundles of wood. Meanwhile, there's an abundance of sunlight, making this a great opportunity to showcase the power of solar cooking and for strengthening the capacity of the global solar cooking movement. So in Kenya, here's the typical cooking solutions. You can see there's charcoal, there's fire. We have had a multi-year collaboration with the Eco Mandate Foundation, which is based in Nairobi. And they manufacture a family-size solar box oven, which is designed in Kenya by Kenyans using material found in Kenya for use in Kenya. As I said, it's so important. This is not a Western technology that is brought in. It is a technology that is built and manufactured right there in country. But key to the, and you can also see here for these solar cookers, they have a stamp on them which has a phone number on it so people can call for technical assistance and support. But the key to adoption is training. You can't just give people a new technology like this and say, okay, go for it. Refugees, you know, have been through extraordinary trauma, and they will want to at least be able to cook the way they've already cooked. So what we do through the training program, the NGO that we support at Kakuma, you know, is identifying who are the women leaders, who are the sort of the natural leaders within the community that they can talk to and show the benefits of solar cooking, and really sort of target early adopters. Then their friends and neighbors see how easy and cheap it is, and then they want to get a solar cooker. So we're empowering the women refugees. Some become trainers the following year. In addition to solar cooking, they learn about water pasteurization and heat retention. One of the other important things is, as I said, painting the pots black. So here, you know, you don't have to buy a special pot. People have brought their pots in, and then refugees are painting the pots black with just a simple black house paint. And here we have some of the women that sort of are moving from the traditional cooking over the fire to now having their solar cookers and their solar cooked meal. So here are some pictures of the solar cooked meals, some vegetable stews and meat stews and potatoes, all done through solar cooking. We also we start with this evaluation is hugely important. So before we distribute it, we gather baseline data, and then we do a post-distribution data. We quantify the use and the impact, and we use that data to then support the further adoption of solar cooking. So, you know, how much is the cost of a solar cooker? As you can see, you know, most families of approximately 7 people have spent $23 on cooking fuel before having a solar cooker. That's a month. A solar cooker, now they're only spending $5.50 on cooking fuel after they get a solar cooker. So that cooking fuel is used when they need to cook at night, or if on the very rare cloudy day that it happens to be. So the cost per the ovens that we are providing that serve 6 to 7 people vary considerably, obviously sort of based on supply of materials, based on training costs, based on maintenance, but sort of is about $400 per oven. And that figure can be broken down to $40 a year over 10 years of the lifetime of the cooker. And the price per cooker per person fed would be about $6.83 per person per year. So you can see it's phenomenally economical and far, far cheaper than purchasing fuels, let alone all the tremendous impacts on people's health and their environment. So as you can see, we now have over 2,300 refugees benefiting from solar cooking, from over 294 solar cookers that we've distributed since 2018. These cookers predicted to cook over 25 million meals, thus avoiding all the CO2 emissions. And each solar cooker prevents the cutting of 1 ton of firewood annually and avoids 1.5 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions annually. So just a huge impact. So let me share with you what some others are saying about solar cooking. We were very excited in 2021 to be named one of the 10 Keeling Curve Prize laureates by the Global Warming Mitigation Project. They named us recognizing solar cooking as one of the most impactful climate projects around the world. And fortunately, we won $40,000, which we then translated and were able to put all of that into buying solar cookers for the Kakuma refugee camp. Here's a message from one of our partners, from the World Bank. Solar cooking is a renewable solution with no emissions. Once you have a solar cooker, there's no need to use fuel. There's no need for operational costs. We've been really excited about our partnership with the World Bank, which we began a couple of years ago. We have hosted several webinars for their staff on solar cooking, and we've also been part of several of their webinars on solar cooking around the world. And just to sort of, and here's a message, this is very fun, from one of the local trainers at Kakuma. It'll take a minute just to come up. If you can't understand her, you can see what she says on the left-hand side of the slide. So we tried this and it works, so hopefully it'll work again.
With regard to the solar cooker, our students have seen the new technology, and majority of them are acknowledging that it is the solution to Kakuma operations. And like for the female ladies, they are like, this one, we must have it. It will help us to kind of reduce us moving up and down to fetch firewood. It will reduce many risks that majority of them, maybe when they go outside there to fetch firewood, they encounter problems. You see, we have issues of SGBV and things like that. And if actually this is at home, it will help them reduce all this. By the end of the day, it is clean. We have testified, we have seen the food, we are taking it. I'm going to share with my friends. For me, I think this is the way to go for Kakuma as far as cooking energy is concerned.
Oh, let's see, I can get out of that.
With regard to the
And then, it's not letting me shift my slide any further. So I am not sure why that is happening.
Ruth, if you hit the escape key there,
Yeah.
it should take you back to the preview menu.
I'm trying to escape. There we go. Okay, super. So let me tell you a little bit about ways to engage with Solar Cookers International and what you can do. I gave this slide to Alex so she can send it out to all of you as well. Obviously, sign up for more information. Of course, we would love it if you were so inspired to donate to Solar Cookers. Under the Access SCI's resources, that's how you can get to the Solar Cooking Wiki. We still have some solar cookers, very simple cookits for sale. We're trying to get rid of them. I don't know how many we have left, but there's still some for sale that you can look up. And you know, if you're a part of organizations, particularly environmental organizations, women's health organizations, We'd love to sort of share the importance of solar cooking, and perhaps those organizations, particularly if they have connections with international groups, can start adopting solar cooking as part of the work that they do. We also provide consulting services, so if you're, say, with a religious group that is supporting refugee camps somewhere in the world, we can help with how would you design a solar cooking project? How would you implement that? We can provide testing services, as we said. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we also provide consultative services to other organizations that want to be starting solar cooking projects in other countries. So with that, thank you, and happy to answer any questions you have. At this point, I'll stop sharing and show my face.
Ruth, thank you so much. The links you provided to me, I've placed on our Autobahn website, and I've placed a link to that website in our chat window, so folks are able to access those. And since we have a manageable group size this evening, what I've done is given people the ability to unmute themselves so they can ask their questions directly. And I know, Neil, you had a question in the chat window there, if you'd like to start us off. And Neil, you should have the ability to unmute your
Okay, yeah,
microphone.
there we go.
Perfect.
Oh,
We were talking a little bit before she was doing the presentation about my daughter being in the Peace Corps down in Paraguay, and one of her projects was to try and get the people down there to change from cooking indoors with all their charcoal and wood. Has the organization Solar Cookers ever talked or approached the Peace Corps? Because they put people, volunteers right in the villages. I mean, they're right there. So have they ever talked to that organization at all about instituting some type of a program for that?
I don't know. I mean, we're certainly well aware of the Peace Corps. Good question. I don't know. I can find out. Yeah, good question. I don't know. I can find out.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Dan, I see you have a questionnaire. Thank you for raising your virtual hand.
Yeah, this is actually Donnie, my partner in life.
I am wondering about the sweet potatoes. So were they baked whole with skins, or were they sliced?
You can do it either way. You just have a pot and you put in the whole sweet potato. Or what I've also done is I've roasted sweet potatoes. There's a fabulous solar cooking cookbook, which is downstairs. So I'll send that to Alex and she can send it out. Anyway, they have a great recipe for sweet potato enchilada, sweet potato black bean enchiladas. And in that case, you slice up the sweet potatoes and you roast them, with just olive oil and salt and pepper, and roast them in the solar cooker. It doesn't take but maybe 15-20 minutes.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Anyone with any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. I did have a quick question, Ruth.
Yeah.
Assuming that the weather conditions are ideal, bright and sunny, how does the time to cook with a solar cooker compare to, and I'm going to show my ignorance here, a Western convection oven? Things that we have in our kitchens here in the USA.
Well, as I said, it's very much like, any recipe that requires, stews and such, you know, like a slow cooker. It's very much like that. I personally love using the solar cooker, not only because it doesn't heat my house. I think the food tastes better because you're not applying it. It's the food inside, it's like the water molecules in the potato that are just moving around really fast and cooking. So it's delicious.
Very neat, very neat. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so I do like I do a chicken and rice dish, and I just put in raw chicken. I put in uncooked rice, mushrooms and onions, and it sits there for probably about 3 hours, 3.5. And it's tastes just like if I was to do it on the stove, except I don't have to worry about stirring it because nothing sticks on the bottom because there's no heat source that's coming from the bottom. So it just cooks very evenly. You're there in Ohio, so there's lots of rhubarb in the summer. And in like 20-25 minutes, I can make this delicious strawberry rhubarb compote. You just cut up the rhubarb, you put in the strawberries and some sugar, a little lemon juice, no liquid. And you've got this delicious compote to put on ice cream.
That sounds like a plan. You'll have to let us know when you're back in Ohio.
It's been a long time.
I see. Gail, you have your hand raised here. Go ahead. And Gail, you should have the ability to unmute your microphone there.
Sorry. Yes, you referred to the approximate cost of $400 for one of the assembled solar cookers that we saw in the presentation. Who absorbs that cost? Because the people in the refugee camps can't afford that.
So that's actually solar cookers.
Mhm.
That's we cover that, and then through grants and other things. So and I think that there might be some coverage of it from the United Nations. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But really,
I mean, yeah,
it's-
I'm amazed. This is fabulous, and it's not something that I've been aware of. I'm thinking, why aren't we seeing this on the evening news? And yeah,
yeah, well, thank you.
thank you for your work. This is
Yeah, we wonder why we're not seeing it on the evening news either. But
yes.
Last time we were at COP, we had interviews we were on TV interviews on Al Jazeera and a whole bunch of other CNN. There's been an article about solar cooking in the New Yorker. A very exciting development. So the Hilton hotels, we got them interested in solar cooking. And during the pandemic, the top chef at the Hilton hotels started solar cooking. And so now in the summer, he offers solar cooked appetizers up in the
Amazing. So basically your organization covers the cost of the solar cookers through donations and grants and so on.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
And it looks like I was actually able to find at least a CNN article regarding your work. I've posted it in the chat window there. It mentions a handful of sources, but I'm thrilled to see this in CNN and mainstream news, because what a wonderful thing you're doing. This is truly amazing. And thank you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us tonight.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Right. We always like spreading the word because, as I said, we're also, I think, depressed by the climate news. And it's like, there's a sort of, it's not often that you find something that is almost miraculous.
Yes.
Solves so many problems. And that's what got me into solar cookers. It's just like the potential for solar cookers is just enormous, and it's so simple.
Yes, amazing.
Yes, thank you, Ruth, for agreeing to come and share this with us. I was expecting to be amazed, and I was.
Well, terrific. Yeah, and I sent Alex the presentation so that, you know, if you want it, she can just forward it to you. And I will send forthwith, Alex, the name of the new solar cooking cookbook, which is delicious. And I have used several of the recipes in it throughout the summer, and there isn't a bad one in there.
Perfect. And I will place that on our website right away. So folks on the chat here, please feel free to check our website periodically. And Ruth, please keep us updated on progress and things that are happening on your end. We'd love to share that with our membership and our community here, because again, it's such a neat project. We're sure people would be thrilled to learn more.
Well, thank you. And actually, you can just sign up to get information on our website, solarcookers.org. And then we're going to be giving several presentations and co-hosting presentations and press conferences from many of our participants around the world. And that will be at COP, which I think begins November, the last week in November. And all of those presentations you might be able to see live on our website, or if you didn't want to wake up at the wee hours of the morning, you can just click on links. So I suggest, you know, go up on our website. There's right now we're featuring a great webinar that we did at the Women's Health Conference, and has a couple of our one trainee and a woman from I believe it's Gabon, who's talking about the importance of solar cooking.
Absolutely. I will check that out and be sure to add those links to our website. And Ruth, thank you again. What an amazing presentation and an amazing organization you run. I'm sure you don't get enough thanks for this amazing work.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks so much for the invitation. And Peggy, I will see you in the Hopedale UU on Sunday.
Yes, looking forward to that. I've got a little bit of work to do between now and then. And on Sunday, I will bring in, and I'll bring it to the next Audubon meeting. Well, no, I won't be at the next Audubon meeting, but sometime I have a cook it. I have a whole solar, the little portable cook it with my black pot and everything, and I can bring that in so that people can see what it looks like in person. But when we first moved to Ohio, we had an unimproved property. We just had some bare land, and we were doing a lot of work there, planting trees and building trails and things. And we would take leftovers from the night before dinner and our solar cooker and plop things in there about 10 or 11 in the morning and have a hot lunch every day, because there was no power on the site. We did that many times.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, all. And if you have any more questions, just get them to Alex and she'll get them to me.
Right. Thanks again, Ruth. And thanks everyone for attending. Be sure to reach out if you have any questions.
Thank
Everyone,
you.
have a good evening.
Bye.